I would just like to formally welcome everyone to today's event. This is the Global Youth Advancement Network's latest episode of our Roundtable discussions. My name is Hibah Siddiqui, and I'm the youth moderator for today's event. I'm a recent MSU alumni. I just graduated this past May with a bachelor's in neuroscience, and I have been the Global Youth Advancement Network's global citizenship intern for the past 2 years. And I'm so excited to be here today with our wonderful panel. And our event is focused on International Education Week. So the topic of today's discussion is global perspectives in the classroom. So to kick off the event, I'd like to welcome Dr. Robert Glew, the Associate Dean for Academic Programs in the Office for International Studies and Programs, to provide some welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Hibah, and it's my pleasure to be able to join you today and make brief opening remarks at this Global Perspectives in the Classroom Roundtable, which is being held during International Education Week and organized by the Global Youth Advancement Network. We're fortunate to be joined today by our featured panelists to engage in discussions on the importance of intercultural competence and global citizenship in an ever-growing and interconnected and globalized world. As Hibah mentioned, my name's Rob Glew. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Programs in International Studies and Programs here at MSU. And I think I just might have the best job on campus. In my administrative role, I work with our ISP units to support MSU's 17 degree granting colleges and other units in their global engagement and internationalization efforts. In my role, I often focus on issues and programs related to intercultural competence and global citizenship, which includes global learning opportunities, innovative collaborative educational programs, student mobility and exchange programs, and international enrollment management activities, including international student recruitment. As you may know, MSU has been a globally engaged university from the beginning. We welcomed our first international students in 1873, including 2 from Japan, 1 from Canada, and 1 from Holland. And this fall, we are celebrating the 150th anniversary of welcoming those students to campus. Our global engagement efforts continued and grew in the 20th century, and in 1956, President John Hanna established the position of Dean of International Programs at MSU to facilitate and catalyze our efforts. Notably, this was the first such appointment at a university of our size. You can see our institutional commitment to intercultural competence and global citizenship articulated in various ways. For example, it's grounded in MSU's mission statement, which reads, "As a public research-intensive land-grant university funded in part by the state of Michigan, our mission is to advance knowledge and transform lives by providing outstanding undergraduate, graduate, and professional education to promising qualified students in order to prepare them to contribute fully to society as globally engaged citizen leaders." The International Studies and Programs and MSU strategic framework for global engagement and internationalization has 3 pillars, one of which is creating global citizens. This document's available at our website where you can read about additional details, and it is a living framework, so we welcome your feedback. And third, an example that's seen in the MSU undergraduate learning goals. And these can be found at the undergraduate education website. And the 5 learning goals include analytical thinking, cultural understanding, effective citizenship, effective communication, and integrated reasoning. While I don't have time to go into all the details here, let me say that each of the institutional learning goals has learning outcomes and associated global competencies with it. So if you go to the undergraduate education website, you'll be able to read about this in great detail and see how those global competencies are outlined along those 5 broad undergraduate learning goals. So I hope, as you can see, the issues and topics you'll discuss this afternoon are core to our institutional mission and student experience here at MSU. I was also reminded that I was to give brief remarks and not a keynote address. So let me stop here and wish you productive discussions at today's roundtable. Thank you. And now I think I'll hand it back over to Hibah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glew, for that wonderful introduction. And next, I'd like to move on to introducing our 5 wonderful panel members for today. We'd like you to get to know our panel members by having them give a brief self-introduction. So if each member could just share what you do, what your motivations were for becoming more engaged in global education, and what your goals and inspirations were. That's how I'd like to go about it. So if we'd like to start with Tina, could you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, and thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. I serve as the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Administrator for the Office of the Executive Vice President for Administration at Michigan State University, also known as EVPA. I oversee the Office of DEI within that portfolio, providing leadership and strategic plan oversight for enterprise-wide administrative services. And that includes reporting units like the University Infrastructure Planning and Facilities, Human Resources, Information Technology, Procurement and Logistics, and Sustainability. I also lead the inaugural Institutional Business Supplier Diversity Program, which is focused on expanding opportunity, advancing equity, and promoting business inclusion. As far as my motivations, I'm a lifelong learner and I really enjoy learning, but I also enjoy the process of learning. But in addition to that, cultivating a safe and inclusive, as well as a respectful campus, is our top priority, essentially. And strengthening intercultural competency is really a key component in our ability to be able to build a community that cares and a welcome environment for everybody. So essentially, this means us being able to effectively understand, navigate, and bridge across differences. As far as the goals and inspirations, I'm really passionate about making a difference where we all can feel welcome, supported, respected, and valued, regardless of our backgrounds, our experiences, or our perspectives. And the goals and inspirations are really to expand our awareness and consciousness of identities that I might not hold and that you might not hold. And so our ability to guide organizational change effectively helps us to make progress toward our goals when we think about intercultural competence. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. We're so happy to have you here today. Next, Stefanie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, and thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Stefanie Baier. I'm the Director of Instructional Development in the Graduate Teaching Office. In my role, I am in charge of the Graduate Teaching Assistant preparation. That includes also the International Graduate Teaching Assistant Orientation. I direct the teaching professional development opportunities, the certification in college teaching, as well as coordinate the teaching cohort fellowship programs and co-lead the Graduate Teaching Assistant Teaching Learning Community. We call it for short GTATLC. And in my capacity, I work with a lot of international students from various backgrounds, and I actually have the most attendance in all my programs from international graduate students. What motivates me to be more engaged with global education is I was an international student myself. I came to the United States actually to learn more about the United States culture and to immerse myself in the language. I actually came as an au pair and didn't think I would be here for more than a year and stayed longer and then continued my education. I got my master's and my PhD here. During my years of study, I engaged with a lot of international students from various backgrounds, also because I couldn't find anybody from my own home country. And so I was very much fascinated by everything I learned from other international students. I also learned about challenges and about the adaptation of international students when they came to the United States and the challenges that they faced. And so that motivated me to do my master's thesis in writing about international students' adjustment to living in the United States and studying in the United States. And that just one thing led to another. And it really developed a lot of friendships and learning. And I've seen that has been valued by many of the students I engage with as well. And it really is fascinating for me to see how the experiences everybody brings shapes their lives, but also shapes the lives of everyone they interact with. And in terms of what inspired me, the graduate students I work with, and many of them, or the majority of them, I would say, of international backgrounds, they inspire me every day with the wealth of knowledge that they bring, with the cultural backgrounds and the cultural nuances they add to all my work. I love learning about the projects, and I love learning about them personally. And I also enjoy the conversations we have when we discover cultural differences and funds of knowledge and language nuances and so forth. I always see this group I work with particularly as a new generation of educators with global perspectives built into the work they do.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. I look forward to hearing more about your firsthand perspective in this topic. Next, I'd like to ask Salah to introduce yourself.
Thank you again to the organizers and Hibah for hosting this event. I'm a associate professor in the Department of English and currently the director of the Global Studies in the Arts and Humanities program. My research focuses on Arab and Muslim American cultures and politics and contemporary Arab world cultures and the legacies of colonialism in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. I'm currently teaching a global studies graduate seminar, which focuses on interdisciplinary critical approaches to globality. And so we're exploring really in that context, what do we mean when we say something is global? Or, how have people theorized this condition of globality? And so we come at that in some respects from a humanities approach, but of course it draws on communication theory and the social sciences in various ways. I've been involved in global education my entire life, both personally and professionally. I studied languages at the undergraduate level. I majored in French and Spanish. And then for my MA, I studied Arabic language and literature, and my PhD is in comparative literatures with a focus on intellectual cultures of anti-colonial liberation in the mid-20th century. And I was really looking at, my graduate work, I was really looking at the period from about 1945 to about 1960, which sometimes referred to as the era of decolonization. And that might be considered in a way kind of like the precursor to global studies, which really begins to take off in the age of the internet. But you're already having some kind of global interactions around anti-colonial solidarity movements and that kind of thing. And of course, that continues in the 60s and 70s and even to this day. So I've also been teaching, my teaching has focused on global approaches from the time I came here. I was hired in the English department with an emphasis in post-colonial studies, which covers that area that I was talking about in my research. And but even I've taught a course in the British novel, and when I do that, I look for novels that have some kind of global aspect to them, usually through the British Empire and that kind of thing. And I've also been inspired by globally focused social justice movements in Central America, Southern Africa, the Middle East, and most recently in Southeast Asia. I'm working with colleagues to learn about environmental justice movements in Indonesia. And so we've got this, I'll talk a little bit more about this, a kind of ongoing partnership with a university in Indonesia. And I'm trying to keep that sustainable in part through some of these projects. And my main goals have been educational, of course. I'm a teacher first and foremost and a researcher. So learning languages, learning about art and literary trends in global contexts, and the relationship between cultural trends and political movements focused on social justice. So I'm especially committed to partnering in my research and in community projects with global organizations or universities. And one of the most fulfilling aspects of my work in recent years has been hosting the Mandela Washington Fellowship and the SUSI, that's Students Studies of U.S. Institutes. The Mandela Washington Fellows are young African professionals between 25 and 35 years old, and the SUSI students are mostly advanced undergraduate students. So I get to work with some really amazing young people from across Africa and Europe in those summer programs, and we also partner with local community organizations, and so bringing our international visitors to Michigan, and then connecting them up with community organizations and also with my colleagues across campus. So that's been enormously important as part of my goals and inspirations.
Thank you very much, Hila. I look forward to hearing more about your work. And next we'll move on to Lauren.
Thank you, everybody, for asking me to join. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So I'm Lauren Mahalik. I am the Field Experience Coordinator here at James Madison College. And that is a broad title that does a lot, including helping students secure and locate internships, assisting them in determining which education abroad opportunity they might pursue, including international internships. So I wear a couple different hats in my role, and I just started this role about 3 months ago, so I'm very excited and still learning a lot. But what really inspires me and brings me to, having an appreciation for global education probably stems from some of the work that I did in my dissertation. I did research abroad in England, and I'm looking at transnational and global political movements during the American Revolution. And so that really helped to further my appreciation of the role of global in opening opportunities and expanding our understanding of different cultures. And also through my graduate work, had many colleagues in my cohort who were international students. And so interacting with them, having them help me understand things, their perspective on my research, my perspective on theirs, sharing our experiences and knowledge really reified for me the importance of those global connections for graduate students in that situation, but also ways to think about how to make those opportunities available for undergraduate students as well. So here in my role at JMC, that's something that I really try and encourage our students who are often very globally focused or globally interested, especially our students who have international relations majors or comparative cultures and politics majors. And so that leads into the goals and the inspirations that I have. Our students are phenomenal and inspire me every day, every time I meet with them, and they talk about what they desire, how they want to be engaged in the world, their desires to make a difference, to be impactful. And one of my goals is to make it more equitable and make it more accessible for students. I think one of the biggest barriers that I'm sure we will all agree upon and will probably come up in our discussion is the availability, the funding, the working across barriers and breaking down those barriers to make it so that students are able to get a global education, whether they are able to travel or have that global education meet them here in East Lansing itself. So I'll leave it there for now, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Lauren. We're happy to have you here today as well. And finally, last but not least, we have Justin.
Thank you, Hibah, and thank you all for participating and introducing yourself. It's a pleasure to be in esteemed company. My name is Justin Jagger. I'm an academic specialist in the College of Business with the Department of Supply Chain Management. I did my master's in supply chain at MSU, and like many of us, I think, I was able to find a job here teaching. My background originally was biology. That's what I studied as an undergraduate. And while I was at Central Michigan University, I did a study abroad in freshwater ecology in Joensuu, Finland. So that was as an undergraduate, that would have been 2000, because it was the year of there was a voting, interestingly enough, there was a hanging Chad. If anybody was around and remember the news back then, they were having recounts, and I was in Finland, and everybody was asking me, what's going on in your country? And I said, I don't know. we were a group of international students in Finland, so we were all housed in a single dormitory. So a lot of Spanish, French, Japanese, and Cypriots, and elsewhere. So that opened my mind and was one of the best things I did as an undergraduate. You know, I went into a little bit of student loan debt for it, but I took with me that experience. And fast forward 20 years, when I have the opportunity to then bring students and expose them to the world in some way, shape, or form, I'm all for it. So I'm here to just kind of support the global mindset and global initiatives in any way possible. I think that's the critical piece of any university education, to be honest. I think that's originally what it was intended to be. So I think those were my goals and inspirations as well. So I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin, and thank you everyone else for those introductions. I'd like to head straight into our discussion by starting off with our first theme that I'd like to discuss, and that's going to be hearing more about each member's experience and challenges in this field. So Tina, for you specifically, what is a challenge that you experience often? How do you engage with underrepresented and marginalized student groups to better understand their needs and advocate for their concerns?
Thank you for the question. The Office of the EVP for Administration and our units are really focused on providing high-value enterprise services which help to advance the teaching, learning, research, and outreach missions of the university. So we're very intentional about engaging underrepresented and marginalized student groups to better understand their needs and advocate for their concerns as it relates to their student experience. And so we have three key principles that we focus on within our portfolio for achieving operational excellence, and that is delivering outstanding service, providing excellent experience, and engaging in continuous improvement. Everything as it relates to the services that we provide to campus is about an experience. How people feel before, during, and after interacting with our services. And so we're working very intentionally to expand our understanding, our consciousness, and our awareness around the different types of experiences, the different types of identities and needs across campus, so that we can provide those supportive services to effectively help our students and campus community be successful. Many of our employees and leaders serve on committees directly with students to understand and support their needs. Some examples include, like the short-term work group on names and pronouns, which resulted recently in the university name, gender, sexual identity, and pronoun data policy. And we're currently in the process of working to modify our systems through a university implementation project team where we can all appropriately self-identify, and that ultimately helps to promote health, dignity and respect for each other. Additionally, I also serve on the MSU Global DI Task Force, and that was put together specifically to aim efforts to develop resources, programs, and potential policies to reinforce inclusive practices in a global context in an effort to provide, educational materials, teaching resources, training options, and a communications guide. So those are just some examples, but we also partner and support and sponsor events and learning opportunities that increase engagement with historically underrepresented and underserved communities as well. And that's all in an effort to support culturally immersive activities for all employees, for all students, for all staff and faculty to help with the sense of belonging for MSU students and employees. Some of those include, partnerships with our Inclusive Campus Initiative, which many of you are familiar with, focused on inclusion and that feeling of belonging across campus. We've also partnered and supported the Asian Pacific American Student Organization Celebration. Also, another example is the Women's Initiative for Leadership Development, the WILD Conference, which is a student leadership initiative facilitated by a committee of engaged students that connect, engage, and prepare individuals and groups at MSU and beyond to be agents of social change on campus, in the community, and for the broader society. So those are just a few examples, but we're always looking for feedback on what's working well and how we can improve the services that we provide to campus, whether that is regarding technology-based services, accessibility, or even communicating across global time zones.
Thank you, Tina, for that wonderful answer. It's great to hear that there's so many accessible resources for a wide variety of communities on campus. My next question is for Stefanie. What is the biggest finding that you have discovered through your research on psychosocial factors that influence student success? How do you incorporate global perspectives when designing curricula for graduate teaching assistants?
Thank you for the question, Hibah. In my research, I talked a little bit about that. I studied adaptation of international students to living in the United States and what challenges they faced. But furthermore, I did research on psychosocial factors and the impact of on student success, particularly first year students. So I found in the research generally, we always see that grades predict student success. But what I found when I asked students about what impacts their intentions to go on when it's difficult, it came clearly out that self-efficacy, so the belief in being able to succeed, as well as supporting mentors, are crucial in their success. So that those are motivators for them to keep pushing through when it gets difficult. And how that research also translates somewhat into working with international students is they have a heavy dose of self-efficacy to making that step, for example, to go venture out into a different country and learn more, but also study and acquire new skills and also interact with other people and learn about other cultures and navigate a different culture as well. So that is something that came out. And many of them are also the first ones in their families to go to college. So there's a lot of that research that I can really apply and see also when I work and interact with international students particularly. And when it comes to my work, I work, like I said earlier, with a lot of international students, and I develop curriculum for graduate teaching assistant preparation. And I have, I've recognized or have realized that sometimes when we design programs, we design it with people in mind, but we don't ask them what they need. And so my approach to curriculum development is really, I need the graduate teaching assistants, also particularly also the international graduate teaching assistants perspective to shape this program, because I cannot serve people by just thinking I know what they need. I serve people much better when I ask them what they need. And so I have a graduate teaching assistant advisory group. I have 8 students I meet regularly with. 5 of them are of international background, and they often provide feedback and tell me about the challenges. And we always take note of those and build them into an additional program. We also design sessions about student success in general, and we make it a really clear, or we're very transparent about all the resources that are available. And this is not just resource to be successful in your classes, but also where can you find resources and connections with people who want to learn more about global diversity. Many of our international students, when they come to the United States, they find themselves all of a sudden in a minority role. That was never the case in their own countries. So there are things that they are learning there too. So whatever we have there to for them to connect with and to learn more and see where they're at as well, that is really important. And of course, in the program that I do, I make sure that international graduate students have a place that they can co-facilitate sessions with folks from the United States who are working here in the teaching space as well, that their diverse perspectives are put forward. So we always have a panel and in our international graduate student orientation, where we ask international graduate teaching assistants to come forward and share their experiences in the classroom and how how that compares to how they have experienced teaching and learning in their own context in their home countries as well. Furthermore, I also think that the connections many undergraduates are forming with international graduate teaching assistants are tremendously important, and we've heard that from international from undergraduate students. And this ties into a bit into the undergraduate learning goals as well, where we do want to foster this cultural understanding. So we hear from our undergraduates from various international backgrounds, from our undergraduates that the graduate teaching assistants from various international backgrounds have helped them recognize our common humanity that we have to also practice a cultural humility when we interact with others, and that in these interactions we can gain a much better global understanding overall as well.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. Yeah, it's great to hear that that dialogue goes both ways and that there are resources out there to give those international students a sense of support while they're away from home. So that's great to hear. My next question is for Salah. In your experience or through observations and discussion with colleagues, what barriers do you think instructors face?
So we face individual and I think institutional barriers that limit, like what we can do to incorporate global perspectives or global content or add a global frame to the teaching we do or to the research. And sorry about that. At the individual level, I think faculty need to obviously have some education and expertise. Let me close that. Need to have some education or expertise in making a selection of global materials, like what constitutes global materials, and to include those materials in their courses may involve obviously will involve additional work and rethinking of the course, because if you take some reading materials out, or if you change the modules, you can only do so much in 15 weeks. So you make a selection, and of course it's limited in some ways, can't cover everything. So you're asking faculty to, if they don't already have that expertise under their belt, you're asking them to, broaden the scope of a course and make it more globally diverse. If they haven't studied the language or the cultures, it's a lot to ask of someone. But there are ways to do it, and so not all faculty can claim expertise in global aspects of their work. And there's a real risk of token inclusions of material as a way just to meet the expectation of diversity. That this should be globally diversified curriculum. And so you have faculty members who aren't comfortable, aren't confident in doing that. But they still want to be able to say they're doing it. And so there's this kind of token representation, and there's a real risk of that. So there has to be a serious engagement, and for faculty who haven't, I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end of my comments here, but if they haven't had that preparation, it's just a lot to ask, and people are busy and they're doing research, and it may not directly relate to their research, and they've got courses prepared that they teach and they're required. So institutionally, there's not always adequate resources to support or support structures to assist faculty who want to incorporate global perspectives but don't feel like they have the capacity. So, but there are, there are things like, like technology for now has made it possible to bring in speakers remotely, and to explore options globally and diversify the curriculum in almost every field of study. So even in something like math, like you can provide a global framework for math, whether it's an advanced, more abstract math course, but there's research in math going on all around the world. And there's ways that it gets taught differently. And so there's ways to kind of bring in, even if, you don't know, even if you don't obviously see like a global approach to, say, calculus. Calculus doesn't just drop out of the sky. It has a global history. And so, So there are ways that, what you might assume to be like a kind of content neutral course can be globalized. And we need to talk to people about ways to do that, but they also need to want to do it. I mean, we can't, in the interest of academic freedom, we can't say you have to teach a course with global content. It's just not, it's unreasonable to make that kind of demand on faculty. But I do think we're at a historic turning point in new approaches in higher ed in relationship to globality. And so the current generation of faculty, and I would include myself certainly in that, because I've been here 25 years and things have changed quite a bit at MSU. And I came from a place, the University of Texas, where I did my graduate work, which was similarly kind of on the path of some of these changes in the 90s and the turn of the millennium. And so, but we're kind of like in a way trying to keep up with what the education is that we're giving to the students that are coming the generation behind us. So especially graduate students who, are say 20 or 25 years younger than me and that are coming in, they've benefited in many ways from a global framing or discussions of globalization and globality that we didn't have because we weren't using that language in graduate school. We were still thinking, and this will come to the answer to another question, at the end when I sort of think about like, what do we envision global studies to look like or global education to look like? But I'll stop there for now.
Thank you. Thank you for that very interesting answer. My next question is for Lauren. Do you plan any global field experiences in your program, and what benefit do you see in these unique experiences?
Thank you for that question, Hibah. Yes, we do. We actually have a number of global field experiences. The way that Madison is structured in terms of the field experience requirement, students can fulfill that in a couple different ways. They can use an education abroad experience, so a very more traditional model where they are abroad taking classes, whether that's faculty directed. So we have a number of faculty directed programs that the college sponsors. And then we also sponsor or co-sponsor a number of direct enroll programs. So students can choose that model, and we encourage students to do so. And many of our students do. And then the other model that we've developed and utilized is international internships. And so that's been something that we've seen a number of students really embrace. We're a pretty small residential college. Last summer, we had 33 students go on international internships. And our internships span the globe. We have internships in Australia, in Japan, and in South Korea, internships in Africa and South Africa, in Latin America, in Argentina, and in Europe, in Spain, and in Ireland. So we really capture like a broad, swath of opportunity for our students, that they can get that experience abroad that can really, either whether it's through the traditional education that you get through a classroom or classroom type experience, to opportunities to actually marry the cultural immersion that you get through a study abroad program with an actual internship or program where they are developing those internship skills that can be utilized for their future career plans or professional secondary education. So yeah, that's the way that we've utilize our program and encourage our students to explore those opportunities. And I would say probably about half of the students that I meet with regularly here are talking about education abroad programs, whether they're internships or the actual classroom-based experiences.
Thank you, Lauren. It's great to hear that there are a lot of opportunities out there. My next question is for Justin. Justin, could you please share more about your global supply chain program in Panama, and what do you hope students learn from this experience?
Yeah, thank you, Hibah. So since I started last year with our first iteration of a spring break experiential to Panama, where we will go and visit, or we did the first year and hope to this year again, visit a number of logistics facilities. So that includes the canal, But one of the things that I'm certain comes across is that Panama and Panama City is where we stay, is quite a unique region. It's essentially the closest point in the world where you have two oceans exist. And so you have that inherent logistics capability of moving the materials and letting those big freighters and ships go through. But what is also relevant in much more a global context is that Panama is a distribution hub for both Central and South America. So getting students to appreciate, the flow of goods and the related services involved in that flow of goods, that is the basis of economic activity, and then viewing the region through the supply chain lens. Couple that with being in country for a week, there are definitely some times where we can go and visit some museums and have some historical perspective, not just because of the unique history, really. I mean, the US up until 1999 technically owned the canal. So that's been a unique perspective to provide to the students as well.
Thank you, Justin. It's great to hear that there are those immersive experiences that really allow those core concepts to stick for those students. I'd like to shift our discussion more on classroom involvement now. So for Lauren, I understand that a field experience is required for all JMC students, and education abroad is one way that they can fulfill this requirement. For the students that don't study abroad, what are some ways that the college has incorporated a global experience into the classroom to make sure that all students are gaining a global perspective?
That's a really wonderful question, Hibah. So Madison, I think, is fairly globally minded in terms of the ways that it infuses itself in the classroom. So students gain this from the very onset in their freshman year with the courses that are developed for Madison MC 201 and 202, which are our replacements for the university's ISS courses. And so those are very globally driven from the very outset. So they get that experience right at the start. And that also filters up then when they declare their majors. So two of our majors, it's very evident that they are globally focused. That's international relations and comparative cultures and politics. But even our majors that might seem on their face a little bit more US centric also really incorporate a lot of global experiences and global perspectives into those classrooms. So I was just at an event last night for freshmen as they're considering their majors with the faculty of the social relations and policy course and our major, and the courses that they were talking about are focused not just on social relations and policy as it develops in the United States, but also looking abroad at other locations and regions and doing comparative work in that, between systems. So I would say that Madison augments the experience for those who are not able to travel for whatever reason. And the college is very much inclined and wants to do what we can to make that possible for students. But for those who can't, we do try and make sure that global perspectives are infused into the courses that we offer. And I also think that's something that I am mindful of when I'm talking to students about doing field experience. If they are looking at internships, even those that are locally or nationally based, I work with a number of students that are interested in using and having global experience or global perspectives infused into those internship experiences. So even in the Lansing region, as I'm talking to students, there are a number of opportunities to engage with folks from other cultures, from other, locales. I've got students right now that I'm working with who are volunteering and doing their internships at refugee centers, are working with the MEDC on international trade issues. So there's a wide variety of international just around us. I heard the term glocal the other day, And it really stuck with me that is, I think, a very interesting and great way to frame that even the local has global connections and global, infusions. So that's something that we're very mindful of, and trying to encourage our students to see those opportunities and global perspectives that can be found really anywhere.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Yeah, global is not a word that I've heard before, but I will definitely keep that in mind. It is truly important to see just how interconnected our own communities are. So that's great. My next question is for Justin. Can you share an example of how you've incorporated a global perspective into a couple classes that you teach that didn't, upon first glance, seem like there was any relevant connection or a way to include it?
Absolutely happy to talk on this. This is so the Panama program is sort of a side gig. The main role that I have in the department is to introduce technology systems, information technology to supply chain students through an elective class. The system is called it's called SAP. It's a German software company. So right away, the students are sort of exposed a little bit to this global software system that is designed in part because it is both multilingual and multi-currency. So students oftentimes say, well, I'm just going to take this because it's a technology-based elective. I use simulations, so it's very interactive, along the lines of any study abroad program. I like to make an immersive lab experience. I teach in a computer lab. And so I try to encourage the students to then interact with each other in the team environment. So that's always, trying to encourage teams and students from other backgrounds maybe to interact with each other. But then just realizing that the technology itself is not just for a single company or for a single region, it's actually used throughout the world. So, yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah, it's true that technology is such an important tool that we really can incorporate into the classroom more and more. My next question is for Salah. Could you please share how you incorporated global perspectives in the classroom through your COIL work, such as your collaboration with GYAN JMB? How did the students benefit from this?
Okay, yeah. So in fall 2022, that was the first time I offered a COIL component, a collaborative online international learning component to the course. Now, it's important to understand that when you do a collaborative online international learning course, you have to have a partner that you can work with in another country. And their course that they're offering in their home institution does not have to be the same topic as the course that you offer in your institution. So in 2022, I co-taught with two colleagues a global studies special topics course on global Islamic architecture that focused on Indonesia. So Indonesia, and our partner in the COIL component of the course was the Indonesian National Islamic University in Jambi, UIN Jambi. And so there were 25 students in the UIN Jambi religious studies course, and that religious studies course was being offered by lecturers, and then I, with my colleagues here, we offered the special topics global studies course, and the connection was that in their course they were looking at Malay civilization, Islam and Malay civilization, and Malay civilization includes Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines. It's Islam through that Southern Pacific region, and only a part of their course focused on architecture. And the reason why they incorporated the component on Islamic architecture and the Malay civilization is because we'd already been in conversation with them about developing our syllabi. So you have to work collaboratively in advance in designing your syllabi so that there's a place of overlap. And then what we did was the students, the MSU students and the UIN Jambi students, so 25 UIN Jambi students and 15 MSU students, all at undergraduate level, met 4 or 5 times synchronously on Zoom, and the faculty facilitated those meetings. So it was a big group, right? It was like, 45, almost 50 people would meet on Zoom. And we met, because of the time difference, there's a 12-hour time difference, we would meet on Thursday evenings in Michigan and Friday mornings in Indonesia. And so they had WhatsApp, and so they had WhatsApp groups. So we divided the 40 students into 5 groups of 8, 3 MSU students, 5 Uinjambi students. And then we put them in WhatsApp chats together. And we also had in the synchronous, we would have breakout rooms where they would go into their groups so they could talk and work on projects together. And so and they also used Google folders to share material. So there were group folders, there were group WhatsApp chat, and then we had group breakout rooms in the synchronous. So, but I would say it was about like probably, 75% was asynchronous communication on the WhatsApp and sharing material and editing and what have you on the Google Drive. And, about 25% of the course was the synchronous online. And then what we did at the end was a presentation where each of the groups presented their projects, and they were PowerPoint slideshows. But some of them included original video that they captured as part of their projects, like video walking around these mosques. And then we published on a website the student work. So there were lots of outcomes from that experience. I thought it was pretty productive. And the students got to have like direct contact. The challenges were, of course, like language and time, time zones and those kinds of things. Like most of the Uinjambi students are studying English, but they're not English speakers. And so they're a little bit shy, and, some are very fluent and others are just sort of struggling still to learn English. So there wasn't always equal participation. So this semester, I'm coiling a course with Dion Jananto, who has a PhD from MSU's College of Education. He is a currently graduate faculty at Uinjambi, so he teaches in their education program. So he's teaching the future teachers under their, they have a master's degree in higher ed. So he's teaching that seminar this semester, and I'm teaching a global studies graduate seminar on methods of global research and the field of global studies. So his course is on international education, actually, and my course is on global studies in a kind of general way, like terminology, concepts, things like that. And so what he did was he and I decided to kind of give them a case study to think about that would be related to education, the kind of education that he wants to encourage there, and also related to a global issue that we could address. And so they're focusing on environmental issues and food production in Indonesia as it relates to palm oil, very specifically palm oil, because palm oil is widely consumed globally, and Indonesia is the biggest exporter of palm oil. And palm oil is in it's in makeup, it's in food, it's used for food production, it's also used in industry. So there's been a lot of environmental impact on Indonesia as it's gone from being just a normal producer of palm oil to being the world's greatest producer of palm oil. And so there are people whose livelihood rely on palm oil, and there's people whose livelihoods have been destroyed by palm oil. And so they're making, our students are in groups. So he has 15 students in his class, and I have 6 in my grad seminar. So we put there are 3 groups of 7. And so they're working on video projects and a narrative. So there's going to be 3 small video projects, or they might just be like photo slideshows with narrative. So each group is putting together a project, and we hope that those projects will be on display at the library or at the MSU Museum. The MSU Museum is hosting a program and some exhibits called Food Fight. So we've been invited to prepare a small program for that, where the student work could be on display, maybe not through the whole exhibit period. So we hope to have these projects done by January, and that's when the exhibit goes up. So it might just be kind of posted into their programming towards the end. So this has been a really generative thing for those grad students, because it counts as you know, it's not just a term paper they're giving to me. This would be something that would be actually publicly accessible and would put their research on display. And it's truly global because it's a project between graduate students in Indonesia and our MSU students. So, and it's all original. So we feel pretty good about it. We don't know yet what the outcome will be. We just had our last meeting. So thanks.
Thank you very much for that answer. I look forward to hearing more about the results of that project and their collaboration. It sounded very, very interesting. My next question is for Tina. Do you see global perspectives in the classroom as something that's already included in DEI, or is it a separate topic? How are they similar and different, and how do they complement each other?
Well, thank you for the question. So I want to start with my response centering on diversity. Diversity is the full spectrum of human difference. Okay? It includes people, perspectives, and identities. It's the collective representation of difference, including demographics, backgrounds, etc. Diversity essentially is you. I'm always very mindful to let people know in case no one's ever told them that before, right? There are people out there that thinks that they are not part of diversity, but diversity is you. So when it comes to global perspectives in the classroom, it's absolutely a component of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I mentioned earlier this term intercultural competence. And intercultural competence is really focused on two things. One, skill set, and then two, mindset. And it essentially is our ability to shift perspective and adapt behavior based upon differences and commonalities by experiencing cultures and individuals with greater levels of complexity. And so when we think about global perspectives in the classroom, it's really important, one, for people to understand that it absolutely is a component of diversity, but also two, when it comes to equity, that is just as important for our students to have opportunities, fair opportunities to be able to share their perspectives and contribute to the learning experience. And that will ultimately help strengthen and expand those that are participating within that classroom, their overall intercultural competence. The inclusion piece is where, you know, everyone in the classroom is feeling welcomed, they're feeling encouraged, they're feeling respected, they're feeling appreciated for being an active participant in the learning environment and being able to contribute that perspective to X topic. And so there's a quote that really resonates with me. I'm a quotes person from Brene Brown, and who said, "We don't need to reduce dialogues to right or wrong. The goal should be to become fluent in seeing both sides of issues and training ourselves with enough first-person data and research to be aware of our lens and then to look through the lens of others at the exact same information and imagine how it might impact us and others." Sometimes, you know, our first reaction to a perspective that may be different than our own is to judge. You know, especially if it's something that is complex, something that we don't understand, something that is unfamiliar. And so we have to be mindful of that, even as we think about the classroom setting. So understanding different points of views really helps us to create better experiences for people, better experiences for ourselves, even that are inclusive and welcoming. We all have perspectives and multiple identities. And with that, we all have gaps in knowledge and understanding of perspectives and identities that we don't possess. So having a growth mindset really helps to keep us open to learning and raising our understanding and awareness of each other as people, each other's experiences and our needs. So it absolutely is a complement, a component of diversity, equity, inclusion.
Thank you so much, Tina. I love that quote that you shared. And it really just shows that intercultural connectedness does kind of go hand in hand with empathy as well. My next question is for Stefanie. In your role with preparing graduate teaching assistants for the classroom, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've noticed that they faced in incorporating a global perspective into their lessons and content?
Thank you for the question. When I work with graduate students, I talk to a lot of graduate school students. In fact, we often have new graduate teaching assistants come and pick up their T-shirts after the training intentionally to come to our office and talk to us, so they also know the space where we're at, and that we are a space where they can come and talk to us. And it's been really helpful. So some of the things that they have shared with us is that they sometimes hesitate to share about their backgrounds, because particularly in teaching, they notice this so much that they have an accent, and that they often feel that their accents are seen as a deficit. What we're trying to do often is when these issues are raised, when students mention this to us, is we try again to build this into our program and recognize that they need to be taking pride in what they bring. When they have an accent, that means they speak at least one other language fluently, or quite fluently as well. So we try to encourage that, but that's something we've heard often from them. And when they do build more confidence, and we do encourage them to see their work and what they bring to the classroom as an asset, they start sharing more of those perspectives that they have. The other thing that when they sometimes what they sometimes mention is also, particularly in this world when there are a lot of challenges, when there are wars and conflicts going on, that they're sometimes afraid to share about their perspectives as well, because it is very often the case that people try to categorize and people into certain boxes and according to perspectives, rather than learn from them. And so maybe also that sometimes international graduate students are not as equipped to have good tools to share these perspectives when it comes to these types of things. So they've shared this with us as well. Other challenges we have heard of is that graduate students sometimes suffer somewhat quietly when they're challenged by occurrences in the world, because they don't know if this is sometimes perceived when they say this is our perspective, this is what we've experienced, this is what our families are going through, these are the things we are reading, other things. They feel like sometimes that this clashes with current political understandings and what is put forward in the political arena. So it feels like that is sometimes challenging to them as well. They graduate teaching assistants of international backgrounds and global experiences always sometimes struggle with just the piece that they come from a very a more collectivist approach rather than an individualistic competitive approach. And sometimes that creates challenges when they work with students, when they are challenged, when they grade students and when they provide feedback, etc., that their feedback may be perceived differently than and while their intentions may be otherwise. One other piece we've heard is that the sort of their international students, they come to the country with sort of the idea that they're advancing their learning, and that again, like sometimes for your students, that they are adults and that they have to recognize it, or that they have to do everything on their own, and then sometimes they feel like they still want some advocacy for themselves, as their experience is very different than most other people in the environment. So also one thing we see that they come with a vast of experiences. They often have left careers in their home countries to pursue a degree in higher education, get a PhD, and that they have run nonprofit organizations and things like that, and that that expertise is not utilized, or that they are not seen for some of those accomplishments, but rather often seen more as students only. And so those are things we've heard of as of sometimes feeling challenging when they share about what the experiences they bring and perspectives they bring. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Stefanie, for your answer. That was very interesting to hear. I would like to move on to the last theme of our discussion today, which is focused on the future of global perspectives in the classroom. Our discussion is going great so far, and I want to get to all the questions. We'll see how much we can get through, but my first question is for Salah. There are faculty who are incredibly engaged with global education and value the importance of it in higher education, and others who are quite disconnected from it. What would you say to a faculty member who sees incorporating global perspectives into their classes as a forced fit? How would you help someone see the value and opportunities for finding ways to prioritize it and make it work?
That's a good question. I mean, they've all been good questions, but that's a really good question, a tough one. It takes a lot of work to develop a new course, and faculty have courses, that they've developed already. So, it's a lot to ask somebody to reframe the whole course. I mean, people are changing their course materials regularly. I mean, even in the most fundamental basic courses that you might consider just, you have to know these things. So it's a normal thing to change your course, but to think about it, like to really think about it differently. So the faculty member, I think, has to be enthusiastic and want to, pursue the possibilities offered through a revision of a course and expanding its scope to make it more globally diverse. Like if they're not wanting to do that, I don't think imposing that is going to make it better. It's not a great situation. So they have to see a genuine payoff. They have to genuinely see that this is good for their research or what they want to do or the way they think. It's also for students. It can't just be sort of like, a kind of mechanical thing. It has to actually be felt as genuine. And so there's about 3 reasons that I would give to include a global perspective that may convince, especially people who are maybe more starting out in their careers. It's a little bit harder, when people have been teaching at the same course or same cluster of courses for 8 or 10 years. So all academic fields in the 21st century are global. And that's a case I make both for the humanities and beyond. Not necessarily in terms of their content, but there's some global. No field of study exists in isolation, or in a kind of solely in a national context or a local environment. So more often than not, faculty are already working with international scholars and have international students in their classes. So it's already there. So it's just a question about how you engage the thing that's already there. And sometimes it doesn't really have to take an enormous amount of work or even a huge amount of expertise. You just have to be able to recognize it. Second thing is that a globalized curriculum I believe it enriches opportunities for faculty and students. So there's avenues that are really opened up in terms of research and student experience, like study abroad or program development. So there's like certain things that globalizing does to make, there's externally funded grants that you can apply for. There's fellowships for students that are global. I mean, creating a kind of global awareness around these opportunities, I think, is really important. And then there's a recent emphasis in higher ed and on experiential learning and DEI, as Tina's pointed out. And I think a globalized course can meet those specific college and administrative requirements that if you have a course that kind of ticks the boxes, not just in a kind of symbolic way, but genuinely is committed to that. And that's what we try to do in our program, in our global studies program. And I think it's a really good program. I mean, we've got great faculty and we're creating new opportunities for students. So I think, but it is hard to, faculty who aren't already in the program to sort of see what we're doing. So when we bring in new faculty, it's a question of like, how do you create a culture of recognition of what we're doing and how that can work for them and for their students. Thanks.
Thank you, Salah. I would like to hear everyone's answers to this question. We are running a little short on time, but our general question to conclude the discussion that I have for all our panel members is, how do you envision the future of global education at MSU? And what steps do you believe are essential for further enhancing intercultural experiences for students and faculty? This is for any of the panel members. So if anyone has an answer or would like to go, please go ahead.
I can just jump in because I was thinking about this. So one of the things that's happening is like there's the proliferation of MSU units that use the term global as an adjective. So, we have our global studies program. There's one in the social sciences. There's GYAN, Global Youth Advancement Network. There's a global health. There's lots of global, I think it's global ideas. So we've seen this proliferation, but there's no real coordination or even a level of discussion where all of these units that have global in front of them meet, and where the directors of those programs or even the students that are in those programs or connected to those programs might, in the business school, there's a lot of global studies work being done. Like we don't interconnect. So it'd be great to see us come together and think about where we can intersect, like some kind of network of global units or nodes. We're like nodes, but we're sort of in our silos. So I'm over in Cal, but I do outreach, to other colleges and to other units. But I think we need something that kind of at an administrative level with staffing to support so that we can start to think about how we might actually, work together in our different capacities on global issues and global education and global partnerships. And so that's what my feeling is, that I think that's a really important initiative that I'd like to be part of. And I've tried to kind of catalog all the global, units, and they keep growing. And then I think we can have a really good conversation about what do we really mean when we say global? Like, is my global the same as your global? Like when you say global, do you really mean international? And when I say global, I mean something else. So I think we need to have a conversation about a common understanding of what we it doesn't mean that we have to impose that meaning, but it would be great to have that kind of conversation and sort of see where we intersect, where we overlap. And then, so I envision some kind of institutionally supported site where faculty and students committed to research, teaching, and studying global issues can learn about the various activities we're doing on campus, and maybe have like once a semester, a meeting at the beginning, and then maybe 3 times a year, and have some kind of structure there where we'd have it wouldn't be a center, but it may generate a center eventually. And then, work with the area studies programs and that kind of thing. So that's my 2 cents.
And I'd like to build on that a little bit. And I think, what I'm going to share too speaks a little bit to what Salah was sharing as far as our shared understanding. But collaboration really takes a collective effort. So when we think about how we envision an MSU, a global education, the silos is definitely something that we really need to think about, and that when we consider MSU as the institution that it is, there are several different elements that make it work, and so sometimes we find ourselves in positions where we're not considering all of those elements when we're making decisions, or when we're planning for the future, or whatever it is, right? And so we really have to be more intentional about taking a collective effort and really thinking about what a shared responsibility is and what that looks like, so that we're able to effectively advance and achieve DEI goals within the university. And the benefit is that we all win. We all thrive. We all can be successful. But we first need to have that shared understanding of what is our goal of global education, and our why. And why the why is extremely important and necessary what makes them relevant, how do they align with our values and our long-term vision. I think something that was mentioned was around, not forcing, our community members to do anything as it relates to furthering inclusion, furthering embedding perspectives, global perspectives, global ways of doing things. But if we hire talent who are, aligned with our values, the things that are important to us, then that should never be an issue, right? We should all be running towards the same mark. So it's important, again, to invite that participation and identifying and determining the solutions to help us reach those goals, and then giving true consideration to the thoughts, the perspectives, and the needs of those that are impacted. And when it comes to DEI, I'm always, or at least I try to be, right, very cognizant of our journey being something that is done together, and that it's done with our students, it's done with our staff, and it's done with our faculty, and not in a way where we're siloed off to try to do this thing. And that it's not something that's done to them, right? It's done with them versus being done to them. So we all have that value added perspective to offer, and we just need our voices heard. That truly makes us stronger together, and then we achieve progress oftentimes at a faster pace as well.
I don't have a lot to add. I think my colleagues really captured a lot of the things that I was also thinking about. But one real important thing to me is also that I think we have to just also recognize, and particularly because I work with so many international students, that we have to recognize the wealth of global experiences and perspectives that students bring to this campus, and that they are also students are also educators, right? And that they can educate their fellow students and also the employees and about global challenges that we may not even hear of sometimes. They can also help advance and bring solutions and discuss solutions. So I also think dialogue is extremely important when we want to make sure that we understand the perspectives, and we come together with all our diverse experiences to bring solutions into fruition as well when we talk about different issues. And then just that all of us, I think, have the responsibility to elevate the voices of everyone that has such a wealth of experience as well. Thank you.
I will just add briefly, one of the things that I've been thinking about when I started this position, and it's been something that I've looked at as I've continued to really get a grasp of it, is making opportunities available for students to engage in that global education, to have those experiences, to really improve and increase accessibility. I think all probably are aware of it's an ever expensive world that we're living in, but the wealth of opportunities are so wonderful, and to help students to see those opportunities not only locally but also to actually be able to engage and to go on these experiences, to whether it's things like what Salah was talking about with, encouraging the development of COIL type programs so that they can have that cross-cultural collaboration and experience, to helping to open up opportunities and make them affordable for students and meet students with what their needs are to travel and to have that cultural immersion. That's something that I've been trying to wrestle with and see about ways that I can use my position to advocate for those that development, to champion the increased resource allocations in those ways, and to raise awareness.
I agree with what everybody has said here. The first thing I wrote was resources. I think being able to have provide resources both for the students but also the faculty who are interested in trying to promote it. Obviously, we can't force things, but at the same time, I think you can encourage and promote. So yeah, I think that all of these things and having events like this, that's actually what I really want to close with, was thank you for having this panel. I thought it was a tremendous opportunity to learn from people who I've, it's a big campus, but it's really, we're just down the road from each other. So it's nice to get to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Justin, and thank you to all of our panelists. I'm so very pleased to hear from every single one of you. I thought today's discussion was so thought-provoking and such a great first step in that collaboration that MSU can go through with and each department can go through with for introducing more global perspectives in the classroom. But just one more time from my end of things, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining today. We are so honored and to have you guys here today. Thank you so much.